guys, I'm Matt Manero. Welcome to our Business Finishing School Management by Objectives webinar. I want to thank everybody for their patience while we got this loaded up. And Rick Sapio and I are in my studio in Dallas, Texas. My name is Matt Manero. I own a company in Dallas called Commercial Fleet Financing. For the last 21 years, I financed big rigs, bulldozers, tow trucks. We've done well over $1 billion. We'll do $100 million a year plus. And I have fallen victim to so many of the skills, the topics, the information that Business Finishing School teaches that I've changed my whole business because of Business Finishing School. So Rick and I are here together for webinar number 2 of this 3-part series. Rick, why don't you just do a quick introduction for yourself as well, and then we'll get rocking and rolling on it.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Thanks for being patient. We had a technical glitch that has been resolved. Thank you, JP, who's behind the camera helping us out here. Basically, for the last 23 years, I have owned a holding company, and we make investments in other companies. We have made over 120 investments. And the thing that I've seen is that before we make an investment in a business, we evaluate more than 100 businesses and sometimes more. And so we've had the opportunity to look at thousands of companies. And so 6.5 years ago, after being depressed, literally, that thousands of companies had absolutely no idea what the foundational principles of business were, I decided 6.5 years ago to sit down and write out the foundational principles of business and teach them inside Business Finishing School to really give the world access to something that I learned the hard way, really. Prior to starting Mutual Capital Alliance 23 years ago, I had been an entrepreneur my whole life up to that point. I'd started more than 20 businesses as well. So I've made every mistake that you could possibly make. And then I witnessed all of you making all these mistakes. So I, have decided to basically devote my life to helping entrepreneurs not make mistakes and incorporate the 3 operating principles that we live by: simplicity, probability, and leverage.
So once again, we want to thank everybody for joining us today in this 3-part series. You can go to joinbfs.com and take advantage of a special that Rick and his team at Business Finishing School have run, which is a $10 for the first month sign up. And then it's $229
a month after that. But I want to stress this is a 100% money back guarantee the first 60 days. We really just want you to jump into the program. We want to make it so easy that it's almost a no-brainer for you to get into the program, because the sad thing is, Matt, and you know this, we've had more than 1,000 companies through now. And one of the comments I hear all the time is, I spent $50,000 getting an MBA, and I learned nothing about running my business. And I ask, how is that possible? So when you compare like cost benefit, we will teach you in the first 3 months of this program for $229 a month more than you will learn about running a business than what most people have reported back to me that they have got from their MBA. And the reason is, getting an MBA, a Master's of Business, is more about becoming an employee in a big company, whereas this program is more about how to put principles on the ground to help you grow your business.
It's mission critical. I've been in business 21 years. The first 15 of those years, I made every mistake that we're talking about. The first webinar, Rick and I talked about the Superman complex, in which some person holds the keys to the kingdom. I actually thought that's what business was supposed to be like. I thought that's how a business owner had to be. Don't trust anybody. Only one hand works the register. Nobody signs checks other than you. I mean, all this craziness that limited me for all these years because I was Superman. And I also hired supermen and superwomen as well, who had the secret sauce and nobody could break through. And there was no company culture. It was a successful business, though, I will say that. But there was no possible way that what I was able to achieve to those levels was ever going to scale without fixing these problems. Rick and I met through Inc. magazine, and then I went to the Business Finishing School boot camp in September of this year, and I bought the program instantly. And I would recommend that you guys do your research and analysis and think about doing the exact same thing. Rick, under time, let's get into our webinar number 2, Management by Objectives. How do we get the team on the same page? How do we get us moving in the right direction? And how do we communicate so everybody understands what hill the company's climbing?
Well, I want to start first with a poll, which is really shocking. And this should make you cry. It's so horrible. But Gallup, if you Google it, you can find it. Gallup did don't Google now, just pay attention. We've got an attention crisis in America. Pay attention now, but later you could Google it. Gallup did a poll of 5 million people. That's 5 million American workers, and found that 72%, but more than 70% of employed Americans are either completely disengaged with their job or sabotaging the very business that they work for. It's like crazy. And when they went back and repolled them and said, why are you disengaged? The people gave them some very basic answers. Number one, I don't know what the company stands for. And module one was values-based decision-making. And number two, what they said is, I don't know what my company expects of me. And you sit here and bewildered, like, this is a really easy problem to fix. Well, the fact of the matter is we were never taught this as business owners. So one of the things that Matt and I want to get you to realize is that you're a business owner. Business owner. You're not a business runner. If you want to run a business, go get a job running a business. But a business owner is someone, think about why you wanted to become a business owner. You wanted freedom, right? But what did you recreate? You created all the worst aspects of business: staying up late, working, stress, strain, nepotism, debt, all that stuff. That's not business ownership. Business ownership should be simplicity, probability, and leverage. And that's what we're going to talk about. So when it comes to management by objectives, I want to start with one very simple thing. I believe that all employees should be paid 5 ways. And this will get to the heart of management by objectives. And this is based on looking at thousands of companies. Do you want to say anything before I get into the 5 ways to pay every employee?
Look, I think your point about who benefits most from this is important. If you want to be a one-person cabinet maker as a hobby, I support you on it, but you're never going to be a real business. You've got to get serious about understanding what it takes to be a true owner of a business. The doer in the business, those days are numbered. It's over. Whether you're the minute you go from 1 to 2 people, you must become the owner. And that's what we're trying to get into today. So I challenge you to become a master of business ownership.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, when you do, you have much more simplicity. You have much less stress. As you said, I think a lot of business owners believe I'm supposed to be stressed. I'm supposed to have strained relationships with my family. I'm supposed to, not have time to work out. And that's just not reality. Because as we said, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs started at Apple Computer. They had no business experience. They were like 20 years old, and it became the most valuable company on earth. Why? They were using foundational principles of business, one of which I'm going to talk about right now. So all employees need to be paid. If you want a real business, you don't want people to go home to dinner with their spouse and say, well, I really don't know what my pay is. I'm getting paid by the hour, but they promised me this, they promised me equity. That's not a real business. A real business says all employees at this level get a base salary of X. Call it $40,000 a year as a base. So at least they know that they could get their expenses paid. Now, if you say, well, I can't afford that. If you can't afford to pay entry-level employees a living wage, then something's wrong with your business model, and it's going to be a struggle for you. So,
Rick, let me just chime in on that, because I think some people don't understand this. Sometimes you got to take a step back before you can take a step forward. So you may literally need to stop taking as much out of the business as you are, so that you can reallocate some of that from your bank account into a sales hire or a sales force or a sales manager job. Sometimes you got to take a step back to take multiple steps forwards. And I like to use the bartender example. How many people do we know that, the person's working in the hip bar and they're like, I'm getting ready to go back to college. They never go back to college because they're not willing to go from being a relatively flush bartender to be a broke college person. And therefore they never become the lawyer. They never become the doctor. They never become whatever else it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So the 5 ways to pay people so you could overcome the Gallup problem, which I started with, is base salary. Then everybody needs to know what's expected of them. And it's really, really simple. Your company needs to have 5 objectives each quarter that all employees know. And then each employee individually needs to get a bonus or a commission or something for achieving their own separate 5 objectives. So you got a company's 5 objectives that everybody knows, they're posted on the wall quarterly. And you got each individual employee has 5 objectives. Now they know what's expected of them. Just like Gallup poll said, 70% of employees don't know. So how hard would it be for you to sit down with all your employees and say, employees, here's the company's 5 objectives, here's your 5 objectives. And now at the end of the quarter, they get bonus on achieving those. Third way to pay everybody is a company-wide bonus. And this is the one I love, because you could say, Matt, to your 40 employees, look, at the end of the quarter, if the company achieves its 5 objectives, everyone gets $500, and we all go out to dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. That gets everybody pulling the chariot or rowing the boat in the same direction. We all get bonused $500, and we all go out to dinner as a team. We build camaraderie, we build morale, we build team. The fourth way everybody should be paid, in my opinion, based on what I've seen and looking at thousands of companies, is that every employee needs benefits of some kind. They could be basic benefits. They could be, I don't know, a insurance policy.
They could be a cancer policy. They could be an AFLAC policy. They could be prepaid medical clinic doctor visits for the family policies. It doesn't have to be something major because it's extremely expensive too. But it could be you pre-funding a health savings account for your employees as well. Put $1,000 a year into a health savings account for your employees. That probably covers 4 or 5 doctor visits for them.
Yep. And it relieves them of worrying about that. See, here's the bottom line is, I don't care if you're 1 employee or 1,000. When employees work for a real company, they feel better. They give back more. They try harder. They don't sabotage the business like a lot of employees do. And then the 5th way to pay everybody is a long-term incentive of some kind, a small piece of ownership in the business. It could be, in Brett's case, as a guy actually who worked close to here, with the day he hired his assistant, he said, on your 10-year anniversary, I'm going to buy you a cruise around the world with your husband. And the funny thing was about that, I would say to this girl whenever I saw her, how many more years? And she said, 7 more years till my cruise. And the 10 years has now come and gone. But that motivated her. It's long term. It's something that gets her going every day. And he said the funny thing was, the cruise only cost me $7,000. So he got 10 years of loyalty for $7,000.
Yeah. And your points, Rick, of the dollars that you threw out, the $500 plus the fancy dinner, I can promise you, I have seen some of the same impacts for less than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be those numbers, because some of the audience might say to themselves, how the heck can we can't swing that. Listen, come up with a number. The point is, start to do it now. Okay, JP, on this webinar, let's move to a couple questions. We've got a few questions. Let's start.
Yeah, Louis Pierre said, how do you approach people when the company does not achieve its monthly goal and no one gets the company-wide bonus?
It will take you, so the question was, how do you approach people when the company doesn't hit its objectives? And I'll assume you mean when the individuals don't achieve their objectives. This is interesting about management by objectives. So all the best companies use management by objectives. They all started at some point using it, mainly when they were small. But small companies give up. They try it for a quarter. Oh, that didn't work. So it's going to take you 9 months to a year. That's 3 quarters to 4 quarters to fully bake this into your culture. So it's going to start with the company picking 5 objectives for the quarter. And then each individual picking five objectives. And you may miss all of them the first quarter. Then the next quarter say, okay, it didn't work quarter 1. Let's pick more meaningful objectives that we can all buy into. And you're going to get better and better. It's no different than learning a language or building a muscle.
Rick, we're all so afraid to deliver bad news as the boss or the manager, though. I'm sorry, folks. And I think it was Pierre with a wonderful question. I've had to do it many, many times. We put the plan in place. We put the competition in place. We wanted this wonderful finish, and we missed. And that's what happens, folks.
Well,
win or lose. That's the way it plays out in my world.
Well, we were just talking about this before this event, and in your break room or on your website or your intranet or whatever you use, have your goals ongoing. Have a thermometer. If your goal is to do $1 million in revenue for the quarter, every day increase that thermometer so all employees know where you are on all the goals. So it won't be a surprise. There's reasons to change course midstream. So
JP, what's the other question we have from the webinar?
They kind of tie together. It says, how do you deal with employees that do not do their job, but yet in a way that they're not demotivated?
Yeah, so one of the things that we found that works really, really well is every employee should have a list of responsibilities. I'm responsible for the website. I'm responsible for marketing. I'm responsible for keeping phone expenses down. I'm responsible for maintaining the value of simplicity in our culture. I'm responsible for maintaining business finishing school. Don't have the owner be responsible for business finishing school being in your culture. Have an employee do it. So have a list of responsibilities and then have a list of goals that are linked to those responsibilities somehow. So what happens is the employee knows what their job is because it's based on their responsibility. And if they're not doing their job, give them a quarter to figure it out, to achieve their objective, maybe a quarter or more. But what I have found is most companies don't have motivation problems. They generally have management problems based on not having aligned incentives.
Totally. The employee that you're referencing probably wants to do a much better job, but they don't know what they're supposed to do. And that is your job as the boss. JP, any other questions?
No, sir.
So Rick, let's talk about this implementation, this execution, as we're down to the last 3 minutes of this webinar. Help the audience understand a few key processes on how to deliver and begin to execute this, because take it from me, folks, I'm a high A type personality. I'm the kind of person that thinks of it on Sunday night and implements on Monday. That's not the best strategy for some of this stuff. Some of it has to be spoon-fed into the organization rather than rammed down everybody's throat.
Well, that's why we start the whole program with the foundational principle of values-based decision-making. It's easy for everyone to get. It works inside your family. It works with your relationships with your children. It works inside a business, having a clear set of values. Once you get that down the first 30 days, then you move to values-based decision-making, and you get the whole team together and you say, look, we've decided to shift into being more of a real company. We've seen the Gallup poll. We realize that 70% of you are disengaged. We want to be a real company. So we want to have reasons for you to come work here. The reason is these are our values, our 5 values or 7 or whatever they are. And these are our objectives for the quarter. So we want you to embrace those objectives and believe in them. And we're going to do it in such a way that you have 5 objectives yourself that align with those objectives. And it's really not that hard. But here's the funny thing about this. Again, no different than learning a language is it's very, very simple. But it is not easy. It's simple to learn a language, but it's not easy. It's simple to lose weight, but it's not easy. And what makes it easier is you've got to do a little bit every day. You can't try it, oh, that didn't work. You've got to do a little bit every day, and you got to make a long-term commitment to being a real business. So we've decided to make it really, really, really easy. I'm looking down, but joinbfs.com will give you an opportunity to get in for $10, $10. And you'll get the whole first module. There's a 100% money back guarantee if you get in for the first 60 days. The second month is management by objectives. The third month is using rhythms to amplify your success. So we've basically taken the foundational principles of business and boiled it down to a really simple blueprint. And more than 1,000 businesses have been through. Many have reported tripling their revenue in the first year. I don't know if that's important to you, but it's important to me.
Yeah. If you're serious about business and you're serious about running a business that delivers value to your employees, to your clients, to your vendors, and makes a meaningful impact on your life and your family's life, it's a really important point. Most small business owners have a very unhappy existence on many fronts. Business Finishing School helps level that stuff out through education, through research, through analysis, and I want you to be part of it just like I'm a part of it. Again, it's joinbfs.com. I'm Matt Manero. I'm glad you joined us on this. Rick Sapio, as always, thank you, my friend. We've got one more webinar where we're going to talk about installing rhythms in your business on our third webinar of this three-part series, and that'll be in the first part of January. And I want you to think very seriously about the boot camp that and mastermind session that Business Finishing School puts on in Dallas in February.
Yeah, just go to the main website, businessfinishingschool.com, and you'll see boot camp right there on the top.
Okay, everybody. Thanks again. Thanks for your time, and we appreciate it. We'll see you soon.